And Senator Padilla joins us now. He's a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Senator, thanks for joining us. We know the Office of Special Counsel, this White House, submitted a new name to lead up that office, a Trump loyalist, some may say sycophant. Do you really believe that the Office of Special Counsel under this administration would do an investigation into this?
Look, I know there's questions and whether they may or may not actually do the job of investigating, which, by the way, they have confirmed they have opened an investigation. But it is one step to document what's happening that should lead to accountability. But just because there's a doubt whether they will or not doesn't mean that we should not do our job.
Right.
And so that's one of the big red flags of what's going on here. The Hatch Act, existing federal law, is very clear. Not the president, not senior administration officials, nobody at the Department of Justice should use their position or federal resources to advance a partisan political agenda or effort. But that's exactly what they're doing, right? They're not even trying to hide it.
Well, they said it out loud.
They're saying it out loud. They're using the bullhorn.
Right.
Go get me 5 Republican seats in Texas. And they're using federal resources and personnel working in partnership with Republican leadership in Texas to try to do just that. So a huge violation. We've called for the investigation, and they've confirmed that it has begun, number one. Number two, so why are they doing this in Texas anyway? Mm-hmm. It must be, that's how desperate they are and the lengths to which they will go to hold on to power. They know that the midterms are going to be here before we know it. The margin in the House of Representatives is close enough that this could sway the balance of the House of Representatives next year. They're not trying to run on a record. They're not trying to win next year's elections by saying we're cutting health care, cutting nutrition assistance programs, giving tax breaks to billionaires. It's a raw political power grab, and that's what we're up against.
You know, America's policy is, in fact, made in the state legislatures. You served in the California State Senate for about 2 terms, I believe.
2 terms.
In America, state legislatures draw over 95% of not just congressional districts, but state legislative districts. I think that's by about 6,000 legislative districts, 300 House seats. I agree with you. I do think the president is fearful of what is happening, what could potentially happen in 2026. That being said, this to me sounds a lot like that Brad Raffensperger call, the call that the president made way back when from the last election, well, 2 elections ago, when he asked Brad Raffensperger to find him a little over 11,000 votes so that he could win Georgia and beat Joe Biden in 2020. That was investigated. There was all these conversations around that about some potential criminality, not by the president, but by other people at the time that worked for him. Could this potentially be criminal, what the White House is engaging in? Is that also what you hope the investigation will ferret out?
Yeah, well, there's 2 pieces, right? There's straight Hatch Act violations and the consequences thereof. And it's not just the president, it's all the folks involved with this directing Texas redistricting effort, number one. But clearly there's a larger pattern and practice about what's going on here, the corruption, the abuse of power. And when it comes to our attack on voting rights, right, we've seen executive orders coming out of the White House that would restrict how people can register to vote, the purging of voter rolls, et cetera. There's already a Department of Justice-led effort trying to get voter information, sensitive voter information from states to tee up their purging of voter rolls to influence next year's election. There's legislation in Congress, the SAVE Act, which we've successfully blocked to date in the United States Senate, that would make it harder for people to register and re-register to vote. But this redistricting, mid-decade redistricting, sheer power grab is part of that comprehensive strategy that we're up against.
So I agree 1,000% with where your head is on this for a number of reasons. And the first is a question that, you know, Simone sort of triggers in my head from what she's put on the table and your actions. Who told Texas Republicans to do this? Folks, y'all need to understand. I know a little bit about this space because I
don't know if he's going to say it. Michael Steele is, I'm going to say it. Michael Steele is the reason that Republicans control so many state legislatures today. The Red Map Project from 2010, that's how they grabbed all these state legislatures and grabbed all the power.
I remember
even though they ain't won a popular vote except in 2 elections out of the last 25 years.
You win the ones that matter.
Okay, just want to put it on the table.
And the ones that matter is state legislatures because they're the ones that draw the maps. That's why I targeted and won 1,000 legislative seats in 2010. That's the political calculation. But here's where, for me, this becomes important. Because, Senators, you know, there is a process. We do this every 10 years. It's laid out in our Constitution and in our documents how this process should work. You have now a political party that's interrupting that or breaking that process by injecting, for purely political purposes, as you said, gaining and controlling power. So I agree with what you and your fellow colleagues want to do by going after Republicans, getting the oversight in place, because whether it's you or them, breaking the process is the problem, and that's what we go after. The third point I want to put on, I don't really have a question for you. I'm just going to put this on the table so you can do what you want with it. The third point I want to make is, if I'm a Democratic governor and the DGA, I'm having a meeting with every other Democratic governor. I'm saying, y'all, I want y'all to find three. I want you to find 3 seats in your states, 5 seats in your state, because that's what the Republicans are doing. Texas is the tip of the iceberg. This is incrementalism. You're going to see 3, 5, 7, 8 seats popping up, and suddenly, instead of a 5-seat majority they're going for, it's a 40-seat majority over 6 states. So that's where I see this. How do you see this in light of what you're saying? Not just the legal stuff, but the political piece that you're trying to also wrap into.
And can you speak to, can California actually add seats? Because they have an independent redistricting commission that was created by a ballot initiative.
A lot of Democratic states do. They were trying to do the right thing.
I mean, baby, they done an 8th century.
And to that point, Senator, y'all going to have to break some eggs here.
All right, you
because
put it on the table. You
Cook it up now.
Toss me the softball, now let me swing.
There you go.
All right?
Go for it.
So it's not an if conversation. This conversation's happening. And not just in California, where, yes, there's a redistricting commission, so there may be a little bit of a workaround. In an ideal world, Texas stands down. I think that's where the attention is, calling it out, shaming Texas to do this and not respect something like the Voting Rights Act and how you create these districts. That's a real deal, a real threat. But if Texas goes there, given the stakes of what's happening nationally, the corruption, the chaos, the damage to working families and our national security, California's going to have to fight fire with fire, and so are other states.
But Texas has gone there. They put a map out today. There's no indication that they're not.
The legislature hasn't voted. The governor hasn't signed it. I'm going to hope for the best, but I'm going to prepare for the worst. So California's talking. Other states are talking that way, too, because Republicans have not been shy. They're going to start with Texas, but there's already a list out there of who could be next.
Yeah.
But, again, it's all because clearly their policy agenda, their actions in Congress today are so unpopular with the American people. This is their last gasp of holding on to power after the midterms.
It might be their first gasp, because as you said, there's other states. I think what Republicans are very good at, you tell me if I'm wrong, of testing things, right? This feels like a test, right? This is the canary in the coal mine, where if it goes through, you guys, bang the table. But if there's not actual action after the case, then what's to stop them from doing it in all types of states? And like the chairman said, now they have a 40-seat majority instead of 6.
Right. Well, again, so if Republicans go there, I believe Democrats can and should go there as well. And however it shakes out, it's time to keep organizing.
How do they do it in
Next
California?
year for the elections.
Because how do they do it in California? Because people, current state legislative members that I've spoken to say they feel like they might have to maybe cave to Republicans on voter ID to get them to vote with them to rescind the ballot initiative.
Look, I give up a little voter ID to stop this. I mean, voter ID is, at the end of the day.
I don't want to get ahead or speak for the governor and the legislative leaders. I know that the research is happening behind the scenes on going to the voters and say, hey, if Texas is doing this, can California do this as well? My gut sense, knowing California the way I do, that there's a lot of people in California who say, that's right, game on. And then how you draw those districts. Now, California, we would still do it respecting the Voting Rights Act, but there's probably a way to, help offset what Texas is
more than
doing.
offset in California.